In this video, you're going to see how to create your ideal meal plan. We're going to walk you through making a copy of the ideal meal plan spreadsheet and customizing it. And you'll also get introduced to a really important sub skill, which is learning how to make the smart choice to trade one food for another so that you're supported with reaching your goal. After you get your ideal plan dialed in, you can print it off and put it on your fridge to be able to guide your choices and your grocery shopping. And then you can duplicate that spreadsheet and start adjusting those options to be able to bring in however much variety you feel is ideal. And personally, we both found what we love and enjoy eating day after day. What I mean is, most of our weeks consist of the same simple meals for breakfast, lunch, and snacks, with one fun meal daily at dinner time, providing the majority of that variety. And we can go months without feeling bored because the simple meals provide us with such a consistent source of fuel and good energy. That one fun meal for dinner is enough to keep things interesting. And because we have this approach of relying on a number of simple meals and fun meals, our attention and focus on life isn't pulled away by things like heartburn, IBS, migraines, being hangry, having those constant cravings, or feeling bloated and lethargic. And we're going to share exactly what our meal plan looks like. And you can see the difference between the simple meals and the fun meal. And you're welcome to be able to try and use it if it works for you. And if you don't like it, or if it doesn't agree with you for whatever reason, you're able to just customize it to yourself. So the bottom line is, your meal plan with simple meals and fun meals is going to keep you moving forward with your goal and save you from making hundreds of micro decisions over the next few weeks and possibly beyond the next few months. Because this ideal meal plan is how you make sure that you buy the right combinations of food when you're shopping, get enough protein and the fiber to be able to move that protein through your system, because no one enjoys being backed up. And it's really important for you to actually have a good experience with eating more protein. Cut down on added sugar, hit your calorie goal, whether that's a deficit, maintenance, or surplus. Balance your macros so you're actually eating the right amount of carbs and fats. And regulate your energy throughout the day and keep you full so you're never really hungry and tempted to snack on options that don't serve you. When you see the spreadsheet, you'll notice that it's just one day. The reason that we're starting with just one day is because it lets you practice all the skills that you need for a multi-day meal plan without getting overwhelmed. It ensures that you identify your simple meals, which are the ones that you can fall back on and repeat as frequently as you need whenever life gets too busy. And that is going to keep you grounded. You'll also identify when you're having your fun meal, which gives you that daily balance to be spontaneous and change it up based on what you're feeling that day. It cuts down massively on the time that you would spend preparing different meals. It also helps you save money on groceries because you can actually buy your favorites in bulk instead of shopping for a bunch of random things that you only need a little of. And that just ends up really going bad in the back of the fridge or the pantry anyways, right? And finally, it allows you to rapidly memorize and develop skills that support you faster, which accelerates your progress towards your goals. A good meal plan is one that is customized to your favorite foods and your sweet spot numbers that we identified back during skill number 1. And because of the fact that there are quite a few puzzle pieces to be able to get in place, it's much easier to be able to make sure everything is right when we focus on just one day to start with. If you can get one day mapped out properly, you can map out a whole week or a month if you choose to. So to make this super easy for you, you'll be creating a copy of our ideal meal plan, which is also where you see the examples and our meal plan with the simple and fun meals. After that, we will also show you how to use AI to get useful, customized inspiration so you're never bored. But before you make a copy of the spreadsheet and start building your meal plan, it's important to start noticing the differences between the choices that you actually have. And what we're going to do now is look at how you can trade one food for another, or substitute or swap out similar macros. Remember, food is not created equal in terms of the macronutrients and calories that they provide you. So let's take a look at a few really good options so that you can actually get some easy practice. And super important, don't assume that just because we're actually showing you these certain numbers in this presentation, there is a lot of variation in the manufacturing process. So you must check the labels for the food that is actually in your hand.
First, let's compare a couple of options for protein that are solid choices for any meal. On the left, we have eggs, and on the right, we have tofu, which is made of soybeans. Out of all the numbers that are here, we're going to focus on the most important ones at the moment, the key pieces of information. So first, protein. One egg has 6 grams of protein, but if you eat 2 eggs, you could get 12 grams of protein, which is the same amount of protein in that tofu on the right. The next key piece of information we want to compare is carbohydrates. One egg has 1 gram of carbohydrates, so if you have 2 eggs, that's 2 grams of carbs, versus tofu, which has 0 grams of carbs. And we also want to compare the fat. An egg has 5 grams of fat, so 2 eggs have 10 grams of fat compared to tofu, which has 6 grams of fat. The last key piece of information is the overall calories that each serving has. One egg has 70 calories, so 2 eggs would have 140, whereas tofu has 100 calories. So if you need to keep your calories down, the tofu might be a better option, whereas if your calorie target seems big and you need all the calories that you can get, the eggs will provide more. Next, let's compare chicken breast with canned tuna. Again, the first key piece of information we want to focus on is protein. Both of these have the same amount of protein, 22 grams, and they have the same amount of carbohydrates, 0 grams. They're also pretty similar to each other in terms of fat, just 2.7 grams for chicken and 2 grams for tuna. The last key piece of information is the overall calories. The chicken breast provides 120 calories, whereas the tuna has 105. Next up, we are comparing 2 fats that you might use in a variety of dishes. On the left, we have coconut oil, and on the right, we have good old-fashioned butter. Again, the first key piece of information we want to focus on is protein. Now, as usual with oils and fats, there is no protein. You can see there's also no carbohydrate. They do, however, provide lots of fat. Coconut oil has 15 grams and butter has 11 grams. And finally, how many calories do they have in a 1 tablespoon serving? Coconut oil has 130 calories versus butter's 100 calories. Okay, back to comparing 2 proteins because we can always use more. Here, we're comparing cottage cheese on the left with yogurt on the right. And again, I want to mention that with these types of processed dairy foods, it's incredibly important to check the nutrition fact label for the exact product that you're holding in your hand because the manufacturing techniques can be so different from each other. And you can see a little bit of that here. In terms of the protein, cottage cheese has 11 grams of protein and this yogurt has 10 grams. The carbohydrates look pretty different, with cottage cheese at 6 grams and yogurt at 15 grams. But note here that neither of these say added sugar, so neither of these amounts of carbohydrates or sugar is something to be particularly concerned about. When we compare the fat, we see cottage cheese has 2.5 grams versus the yogurt's 8 grams. And for overall calories, the cottage cheese provides 90 calories with just half a cup, whereas the yogurt provides 170 calories with a full cup. And finally, we're going to compare 2 green things that came directly from Mother Nature. On the left, we have edamame beans, which is a type of soybean, and on the right, we have broccoli. Edamame brings 18.5 grams of protein, while broccoli brings 4 grams. The carbohydrates look pretty similar, with edamame at 14 grams and broccoli at 11 grams. The fat content is very different, with edamame bringing 8 grams and broccoli bringing less than 1 gram. And for overall calories, this is another big difference. The edamame provides 189 calories per cup, whereas the broccoli provides just 55 calories. The whole point about all of this is that no food is better or worse than another food. Simply depending on your circumstances, your needs, and your preferences, one food might be more useful to you in a particular moment.
Now that you've got some practice noticing the difference between options, it's time for you to start thinking about your own meal plan. So the next thing that we're going to do is look at some great options for whole foods. Please turn to page 68 in your playbook. It looks like this, and you can see that we've got great options for whole foods with an open list of proteins, fats, and carbohydrates to give you ideas and spark interest. But the goal is to find what works best for you. Please note that many of the foods on these lists actually have some of the 3 macros, proteins, carbs, and fats in varying amounts. But we put them into the category that they have the most of. So for example, the cottage cheese we eat has 11 grams of protein, 6 grams of carbs, and 2.5 grams of fat. So because it has more protein than anything else, we put it in the list of protein. Down at the bottom of page 68, you can see options to keep it interesting. And those include flavorings and seasonings that bring life and variety to your dishes. Often we just splash those in or sprinkle those on so that they're usually eaten in moderation. And what you're going to do now is identify the options here that you like. Now you can highlight it or draw a little star or a circle around the ones that you like. And if you don't see a favorite on the list, feel free to be able to write it in so that you can remember what you would like to be able to include on your meal plan. Pause the video and take a moment to identify those things that you enjoy. All right, so now that we got your mind on food, next, you'll make a copy of this spreadsheet so that you can actually see our meal plan and what we eat for simple meals and fun meals. And of course, you'll be able to customize that spreadsheet with your own favorites. But first, Jamie's going to go through and show you what's on there so that you're aware of how the spreadsheet will automatically calculate your numbers.
All right, it's time to make your copy of a very special spreadsheet so that you can see what Craig and I eat and also decide if you want to use any of that as a foundation for yourself. First, you'll want to make a copy of the spreadsheet. Again, we're using Google Sheets, so you can do this from your phone or the computer. Personally, I think it's just much easier to see this on a large screen, so I'll be demonstrating on the computer. And there are two ways for you to make a copy of the spreadsheet. You can either scan the QR code on page 69 of the playbook with your camera phone and follow the prompts on screen, or you can visit championandcommand.com/meal on your computer and just follow the prompts on screen. Just make sure that you're using the correct Gmail account when you do this so that your file lives in the right place. After you make a copy, it should look something like this. Okay, so before you dive in by yourself, I want to make sure you understand what you're looking at and you're ready to use this document. So first, we're going to handle a few quick administrative things. Then I'm going to walk you through the meal plan so that you really understand how to read it and what's going on in there, and mostly what the strategy is, because that's the real magic of it. And then after you get that orientation, you'll be ready to start customizing it for yourself, and I'll walk you through some of those early customizations. First things first, we want to organize this spreadsheet in a place that will be very easy for you to find. So click here on this button, File. And then from this menu, go down and select Move. And now you can decide where you want it to be located. The current location probably will pop up inside of My Drive. You could put that into a subfolder. You could make a new folder. Whatever you feel about where you want that to be, you want to finalize that and then click the Move button. You should get some kind of notification after you've done that, like what you're seeing here. Next, you want to customize this document title, and I recommend removing the part that says copy of, replacing that with a name, and then also deleting the part master copy from the end. Now, finally, you want to look down here at the bottom of the window where you'll see this tab that says Day 1. This is a sheet. When you click on this triangle, it'll open up a menu that you can duplicate. So you want to duplicate it. You can make an unlimited number of copies with duplicate, but right now you're just going to make 2 copies. So we're going to have, we'll call this one here, we're going to say original, and you could say on here if you want Jamie and Craig's. And then on Day 1, let's rename this My Version 1. You'll be able to change that one. We're not going to jump in and do that yet. First, I'm going to walk you through the original, but if you didn't do it yet, pause the video and make those 2 tabs. Okay, let's click onto the original version so that we are on the one that you're not going to change. Let me walk you through this so you're aware of the strategy and the design behind it so that you're ready to create your own. Now, when you look at the spreadsheet, the first thing that I want you to notice is we have a target. Take in 130 grams of protein by 7 p.m. to support muscle development. In this case, because of my sweet spot numbers, my target is to take in 130 grams of protein by 7 p.m. to support muscle development. And you can see below that the leftmost column is organized by the time of day. We have rising, breakfast. When we scroll down, we see lunch. Then we get to pre-workout, the workout, post-workout, dinner, evening snack, and then while sleeping. The second column is the food item. And you'll see that we focus a lot on single ingredient whole foods like bone broth, cottage cheese, banana, egg, apple, yogurt, those kinds of things here. The next column is the serving size. And you'll see that I've written 2 measurements here. So for example, I wrote 236 fluid milliliters of bone broth or 8 ounces because I like having the 2 measurements on here. It makes it easier and faster when I'm in the kitchen, depending on what I have in my hand to measure. It might be easier to just grab a cup measure or a certain measuring cup, or if I'm using my scale, which is usually what I do just because it's so much faster and there's less dishes when you're weighing things, is to just put the milliliters there. Okay, now the next column, calories, is how many calories that particular serving has. For example, 1 cup of bone broth has 45 calories. The next column is how many grams of protein. Bone broth has 9 grams of protein. Then we have the column for how many grams of carbs, how many grams of fat, fiber, and then added sugar. Now, it's important to realize with this added sugar, this is not the same as sugar. And you can see that in my column, it's mostly zeros. And that's what happens when you're eating a lot of whole foods. There really is not much added sugar at all. You can see if we scroll all the way down here, there's some chocolate. That's where the added sugar is. And then in my oatmeal is another place where it's hiding. When we scroll down to the bottom, you can see that each meal has a total where we're calculating the number of calories, protein, carbs, etc. And then there's a grand total all the way at the bottom where we can see the daily total. And at the very bottom in this light color, there's a reminder with the target notes about sweet spot numbers. This is here just to make it easy. I'm aiming for a minimum of 1655. I want my protein to be above 130 grams. Same for carbs. Fats should be above 67. Fiber, I'm optimistically aiming for 39, and if I can get close to it, that's awesome. And then added sugar somewhere between 20 to 30, but it's also great in this case if I'm under that. Okay, so all of the food that you're seeing here, all of these meals fall into either a simple meal or a fun meal. And just as a quick reminder, simple meals give convenience, ease, and speed because so many choices are predetermined. Fun meals give adventure and spontaneous variety because you make choices in the moment. You'll make your own choices, of course, but our simple meals are breakfast, lunch, pre-workout, and post-workout, and our fun meals are dinner. So let me walk you through what a day looks like. Craig eats 90% the same stuff that you're seeing listed for the most part on this spreadsheet. It's generally just that Craig's portions are about a third bigger than what you're seeing listed here so that he's hitting his own sweet spot numbers. Now, a lot of people want to know exactly what Craig eats. There's this huge curiosity about it. Like he must be doing something magical. But when they ask that question, it's clear that they don't really understand about the basal metabolic rate or activity zone thresholds. So you're not going to get results just because you eat Craig's meal plan. The reason is that his sweet spot numbers are probably very different from yours. I mean, I know they're extremely different from mine. So you're going to get results because you adapt Craig's way of eating to your sweet spot numbers, but not because you eat the same amounts of food that Craig eats. And I can say from personal experience, when I adapted Craig's approach to my meal plan, like what I'm showing you, I'm going to walk you through, that is how I got really amazing results with changes in my body composition. So at the very least, you will need to customize the serving sizes that you're seeing here so that you're hitting your sweet spot numbers. And if you really strongly dislike some of the foods that are on this list, it's important to recognize that and realize that you have opportunities to trade those out for things that you are genuinely excited about. Okay, so at rising or when getting out of bed, you can see we're starting our day off right with a glass of water. That gives your metabolism a nudge and starts waking things up after you use the energy amplifier from phase 1 in champion activation. Then I head to the kitchen for breakfast and have the first part, which is a cup of bone broth. I do mix in a very healthy splash of lemon juice and also some salt to taste. I heat that up and then I drink that bone broth either while I'm taking a walk around the block or I might finish it before my walk. I want to highlight here that the morning walk happens regardless of the weather. So if it's rainy, I put on a rain jacket or bring an umbrella. If it's cold, I bundle up, but I go for the walk because it's very important to meet my activity goals so that I can afford to eat everything that is here. Now, after my walk, I continue with the rest of breakfast. I have half a cup of cottage cheese sprinkled with cinnamon, and then I top that with banana slices. Then on the side, I have 2 eggs over easy in butter. You'll notice here next to the butter that the serving size is 30% of half a tablespoon. And that is because most of the butter actually stays in the pan. When I'm done with breakfast, I have a teaspoon of psyllium husk with another cup of water, because remember, fiber supports your digestion. And finally, I'll make a small cup of coffee, and I put in my favorite half and half so that I can enjoy that while I start work. The next category that you can see is lunch. That's another spread out situation. So around 11:30, we have oatmeal. This is my own recipe, so there's a mix that's in the pantry, and then we top it with peanut butter, some sliced apple. Craig will add some walnuts and maybe a lot more fruit, and I'm likely to add yogurt onto mine. And then maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, or an hour later, I'll have a protein shake. So I'll mix a scoop of Orgain plant-based protein powder with a half a tablespoon of unsweetened cocoa powder, and then I'll shake that up with water. Now, cocoa is a really awesome way to add some fiber, so I definitely recommend getting creative with where you can fit that in. And there's also an option here to snack on a few almonds, 9 grams or half a pack, depending on what kind of size you've got. Then we get to pre-workout. About 60 or 90 minutes before hitting the gym, I will have a jerky stick, and you absolutely must check your jerky, because any processed foods like this will have very different macro percentages for the fats, the carbs, and the protein. But the ones that we've been getting lately have had these numbers. I'll also have 2 small mandarins, which gives a really good boost of carbohydrates so that I literally have fuel in the tank for my upcoming exercise. And you'll also see here that I'm having more water at that point just to help flush things through. And this listing of BCAA and creatine are 2 supplements that assist with muscle development and recovery. BCAA stands for branched chain amino acids, which are the building blocks or the precursors of protein. It's the ingredients for protein. And creatine is a naturally occurring compound that helps supply energy to your muscles. So I mix that BCAA and the creatine powder into water, and then during the workout, I'll drink those 16 ounces, plus probably another 4 to 6 ounces when I refill my water bottle at the gym, right? So definitely getting in quite a lot of water. And in phase 3 of the FIT system, we go into the supplements that support muscle growth and recovery in more detail, but basically you get a quick overview of that here. Now, after the workout, we take in more protein. This time we use the brand called Isopure because it has a different profile of ingredients. And the Isopure is really pretty thin when you mix it with the water. So if we're not feeling very hungry, we might just shake the Isopure up with water and just have it like that. But if we need more volume in our stomachs, like to tide us over for dinner or a later dinner, we could blend in a banana, more unsweetened cocoa, 1 stalk of celery for some sweetness and fiber, and a pinch of the baby greens mix for those extra micronutrients. So far, everything that we've just covered falls into the simple meals category. And as you can see, those simple meals provide a lot of nourishment and fuel with very little decision making. Day to day, those choices stay extremely similar. And that's the goal. You make things super easy and convenient because you take the time now to do all of this guesswork and calculating. These kinds of simple meals are how it becomes very easy to get the results that you want without spending a lot of time thinking or calculating. Now, of course, depending on the season and what fruit is available, we can swap out different things like berries or kiwis or peaches. But the huge benefit that we want you to notice about this particular combination of foods is that they are widely available even in the middle of winter. Other than the 2 protein powder brands that we listed, which you could order online, most of those things will be available for you locally. So this is a really good year-round meal plan that you can follow even if you're in a place where there's snow on the ground. And like I mentioned, dinner is the fun meal. So this is where the ingredients can be totally different from what you're seeing listed on that spreadsheet. Now, that said, the option that we're sharing with you is one of our favorites, so we rely on it really frequently. chicken breast, pan fried with coconut oil, and steamed broccoli and quinoa on the side, topped with ranch dressing. In a future lesson, we're going to cover how to be safely spontaneous with your fun meals, because ultimately, for all of this to shift into a lifestyle that is sustainable for years, you have to learn how to hit your numbers spontaneously without a plan. But honestly, being safely spontaneous is a pretty advanced skill, and we don't want to jump forward before you're ready. So right now, we're developing the foundational skill that supports spontaneity later. One step at a time, right? Okay, so then right before my window for eating closes at 7 p.m., I might have an evening snack or a dessert, like a square of chocolate with some added sugar here. And then to support my digestive health, I'll do another teaspoon of psyllium husk mixed with water. When I'm sleeping, I tend to wake up pretty thirsty in the middle of the night, so I drink water throughout the night. It's just on my nightstand, probably about 8 ounces. And it's really important to stay hydrated, because when you step on your body composition scale for your morning weigh-in, you'll get the most accurate results when you're hydrated. So as you can see down here at the bottom, I'm really close to all of my sweet spot numbers. The total calories is 1699. My goal is 1655, so I'm about 44 above, which is a nice little buffer. My protein needs to be at least 130, and I'm hitting 144, which is great. Carbs also want to be above 130, and I'm at 161. Fat needs to be above 67, so I'm hitting that right there. Fiber is not quite at my target mark of 39, but I will tell you from personal experience that I am just fine at 33 grams. It's important to experiment with this a little bit and find out what feels good for your body. And then here for added sugar, I'm doing a great job. Anywhere between 20 to 30 grams is fine. I'm not even at 10, so that's all on track. Okay, so there you go. You've just seen the basics of what Craig eats and how I've adapted that to hit my own sweet spot numbers on a daily basis. Of course, the biggest difference between what Craig eats and what I eat or what you're gonna eat is gonna be the serving size, because we all have different sweet spot numbers, and the meal plan must be customized to you, your basal metabolic rate, and your unique combination of needs. Now that you've had an introduction, it's time for you to start customizing your own meal plan. So I recommend that you follow along with what I'm about to show you, and then make those changes on your own copy of the document as I'm walking you through with the demonstrations. You are also going to want your playbook open to page 65 so you can refer to your sweet spot numbers. First, double check down at the bottom. Make sure that you're on the one, My Version 1. It should be selected blue like you're seeing here. That's how you know you're on the copy that's safe for you to change. Okay, next, let's adjust this target row. You want to identify your protein range and your eating time window. So refer to your sweet spot numbers, put the number in there. You're just going to double click. You can change that and change that, or you can also type up here in this area, whatever's easier for you. And when you're done with that, you're going to press enter. Next, let's scroll down to the bottom, because we need to adjust these target numbers that are here, because these sweet spot numbers are for me and they need to be for you. So you're going to click in each one of these and you're going to update this to the calorie number that is correct, whatever's on page 65 for your sweet spot numbers. You're going to put that here, and you're going to update the target grams of protein, carbs, fat, fiber. Added sugar will stay the same, but you want to customize those. So if you need to, pause the video right now, take a moment and make sure your targets are in those cells properly. When you're adding things, you might want to have more ingredients than I've shown here. So what would you do if you need to add more rows to this? Now, the thing that's important as a consideration is you don't want to break the automatic calculation that is happening on this spreadsheet. So just as an example, if I double click here on this calorie count, do you see how this yellow-orange dotted line is showing up around it? So what that means is that it's calculating all of the numbers that are in those cells. And similarly, if you look here, you're able to see what is being calculated in each of those. And they're all correct right now. And sometimes if you add a row, you can do it the wrong way and you can break the auto calculation, and then it leads to an issue that is hard to find. Similarly, down here at the bottom with the daily total, these are particular rows that are being brought in. And you can see when we look up above, we can see these highlighted or emphasized cells, right? So in order not to change any of that, if you need to add a row inside of a section, like let's say you need another row in breakfast, you right click and you say insert one row above. And when you do that, because you're putting it into the middle of what's already there, this auto calculation will work perfectly and it will not get disrupted in any kind of way. So as long as you add a row into the middle, you're going to be completely fine. Okay, now that you understand the overall strategy and the goal, you can start playing and customizing this document to fit your sweet spot numbers and your personal preferences. Of course, you are welcome to use as much of this original plan as you like, but very important, you must like your meal plan. And ideally, you love your meal plan. The reason that we're able to eat everything that's here on repeat is because we like it a lot. So what are the meals that you like enough that you can eat on repeat? And for that, you may want to look back at your notes on different pages of the playbook when you were going through the earlier videos, because it's really worth it to figure out what combination of ingredients you love, because that will give you a handful of simple meals that are very reliable, consistent sources of energy for weeks and months on end. So if you can't see yourself enjoying what we've listed here, like for example, some people just can't stand cottage cheese, then look at how you can swap out foods and make sure that everything still works for you. Of course, if I didn't say it, you can delete the details in the cells and you can type in everything that you prefer. Also, very importantly, you'll need to check the nutrition facts for what you're writing in, because your brands and the exact numbers are probably going to be different for things like jerky or dairy products or little extras that you might put on it. Different types of salad dressing, for example. There's a lot of variation with those. And so you want to make sure that you're getting the right numbers for you. But mostly, give yourself permission to experiment with this, because you can always just make another copy of the document if you want to start playing with things in a new way. Think of this as a puzzle. Think of it as a game and just keep playing with it until you figure it out. And if you get stumped or if you want feedback about your meal plan, don't forget that you've got access to us in the weekly call. So make sure that you're signed up to get that feedback. Oh, and share your document the way that I showed you before. And remember, you can eat any food in moderation. So if you really want to make room for something to eat it, add it on there and see what else needs to adjust in order to let that be there. Because it's really just about making sure that the whole picture for the whole day works together.
So my friend, that gives you a sense of what to do. Next, you're going to take as much time as you need to be able to go through and customize your ideal meal plan. If you get stuck for inspiration, we've added one video below to be able to get your mind flowing with AI.